home isn't where you're from, but where you're wanted. Now, when it comes to China, I never felt like it was ever going to be my home. Again, when I talked about Italy, I knew that, that was a place that I could call home. I knew it. And when I went there, it confirmed it. I never really thought I would end up in Asia. But due to, again, I did come into financial issues based on some of my decisions. If you want to know about, money things, I will share about it. But as far as, becoming a millionaire, that is not my thing. But due to circumstances that when I was in Poland, I was in Europe and I was hoping to have Europe as my gateway to live in Europe and make a life there, and which would lead me maybe to Italy or whatever. But that didn't happen. And anyway, I was just like struggling, and I really was reluctant to go to China because of some of my health issues. And, I didn't know if they would be able to help me with my mental health. And that's important. So I did know a couple of people that were in China, and I did speak to them about some things, and they kind of gave me the assurance that, of course, as long as I'm in a bigger city, international city, that it shouldn't be a problem, things like that. And I did some research. I'm like, all right, I'll go to China, because I knew there's abundance of opportunity for teachers. I mean, it's just, it's recession free. It's recession free. It really is. I mean, if you want to, I'm just saying, if you really want to teach, or if you really want to travel and have an international experience, and you have certain qualifications, whatever, in a nutshell, you could do teaching, English at least. And if you're from an English speaking country, of course. But so from Poland, I was able to deal with everything, which is a lot, to get the paperwork and the requirements and go through the process to get into China. And just as hard as it get in, it's really hard to get through and to get out. And I felt wanted, at least for my education. I didn't know if I was going to feel at home. I didn't know if I was going to feel welcomed by the people. I didn't know any of that, but I knew that I would feel at least wanted for my knowledge and my, skills that I can offer the kids, the parents' expectations for them, and be of use in at least that way, wanted in that way. In Beijing as my first city, but again, I was nomadic and I moved through that country. But I will start there. And Beijing is enormous city, land-wise. It's enormous city. Let's just say this, with their high-tech trains. And, they are high-tech. I mean, I will give you that. They are high-tech. And the conveniences related to transportation, the infrastructure, their Wi-Fi, their apps, it's just, wow. It really is. But even with their train system from where I was in Beijing, it still took me over an hour and a half from the outer ring, I was in the fifth ring, to get to the center area, which was much more cosmopolitan, international, and obviously also more expensive. But I was working for a university in the outskirts, and that's just what I found at last minute. And I'm just like, okay, I'll go with it. So I was in the outskirts of Beijing when it was the lockdown. And so that January was when I was just getting really started with living there and working there. And then everything changed, where the most unfathomable of things, which of course for billions of people, which was this pandemic. For me, it came from almost left field. I did get a whiff of it, news when I was leaving the Philippines. One of the workers at my hotel brought it up, someone got sick and was coming home on a plane and with this virus. I'm like, yeah, whatever. We've heard of so many things before, and I'm just like, yeah, okay. But it was much bigger, obviously, than I could have possibly imagined. And first started off where China was denying anything for weeks. And we learned, obviously, they had knowledge of something going on back in December, but, they didn't do anything. And then boom, it started getting out of the country and hitting other places like Italy and local Asian countries as well. And just my world turned upside down in, not being at home yet in a new country and a pandemic hitting you at the same time. It's like an atomic explosion for someone who suffers from anxiety and depression, and and isolation does not, work well for me. So when I keep moving around, it's really not really good for my mental health, to be honest with you, because, I need for, my well-being, a sense of foundation. So I know it sounds like, well, why do you live this way? Well, I am a person that has mental health issues, but I am a person that has a certain need to live a certain lifestyle, and I have to find a balance. But when you first move somewhere, it's really hard, especially how about this? Especially when you're in a culture that's completely different than your own. It's, like when you go to Europe and you're going to countries that are familiar with English or, like Western ways, and you're Western, it's not that as difficult to adapt to a culture. I mean, they have, familiar things to you. When you move to countries that are dynamically opposite of yours, where the language, the food, not just the food, but how you eat food and how everything functions is literally like the upside down world from Stranger Things. It's just so different. I'm not saying it's like bad, but like when you're new to a culture, you have to learn everything from square one. And that is part of living the life that I do, is you have to be open to and accepting that you are starting over. And that means everything. And it's a very vulnerable time. It's humbling. But it really takes a lot of skills and resources, experiences to navigate through those beginning months. And it usually is about 3 months at least to get kind of your bearings, especially if, let's say, you are solo and not with, a partner, or maybe knowing, people there already to kind of take you through and walk you through some things. But China is made for Chinese. And what I mean by that, the culture is, they have a certain values and they have a certain way. And again, they speak Chinese. That's their language. English is very much for the elite. To be honest with you, it's not taught, and it's not taught well in their public schools. And it's not taught that great, to be honest with you, at the international university levels that I worked at, to be honest with you. But it functions for the Chinese, for the everyday Chinese. And so like you are always, like, to me, I always felt like a foreigner in foreign land. And that might be how they feel when they go to America or other countries. But like, that's really how it is. And navigating through Asia to live in a country like China really takes resilience. And if you don't have it, you learn it. And it's a good skill. But, I'm not saying I'm a master at that either. But it took quite some time for me to make that place feel like some sort of home for myself. But through the pandemic, that wasn't the case. I never really felt at home there. And there are foreigners that do find their people. They find it to be something they, I guess, enjoy in some capacity. A lot of foreigners, just gravitate to each other, because it really is about survival. And you need that comfort of familiarity and people like yourself and people who speak your language or understand your situation is absolutely essential to get through it. I don't care if you love another culture. If you don't have, people that you can identify with, it's a very difficult situation. It's really important to find at least one person that makes you feel like you're not an alien in a place, especially in the beginning. And I don't even know where to begin with China. I mean, I don't think I can break down China enough. But for this particular podcast, when it comes to making China at home, eventually, let's just say this, eventually with time, again, it took a few months well into that year of 2020 to get my feet on the ground. Again, I was learning how to take care of a dog with special needs. She had skin issues, and was causing her so much discomfort. I learned that she was hard of hearing or deaf. Sweet as anything, good manners or whatever, but anxiety, as like me, French bulldogs do. And so like eventually when I did have to go back to work, it was really difficult because she was used to me being around all the time. And she was, I think, afraid that I would not come home, and so that she would pee on the floor and whatever. So like we got to know each other. I got her better eventually. I was able to, through a friend, make, a contact, a foreigner, where when I worked at home, and we were both dealing with this situation, this insane lockdown in China, the zero policy. Everything you heard in the news was pretty much true. So like, I would have to say that like, when you heard about the horrors of it, it really was true. It really was true. And their technology, as against it was able how to, they kept us in lockdown because they knew how to do it technologically because they were that advanced, and they knew how to track you everywhere. And if you were in a store at a certain time and then an hour later someone found out that they were in your same area at that same store an hour later or something like that, and they eventually got tested and they got positive, then they would trace everyone who was in close proximity to that person. And like our phones would light up, and like, you would have to go to quarantine and like all this stuff. I mean, I just can't even get into it. So it's like, and especially the foreigners there, we felt like you feel like a minority. Like if you're not a minority, which I've never been, like, I mean, a woman is a minority in this world, but I'm talking about, I would have to say, like, if you are a person of a certain, whatever, ethnicity, a certain gender, a certain background, and you go into a country that is completely different than yours and you live there, you are a minority. Like you are not, you're not represented in that way. So, we stand out like a sore thumb, all of us. And the news certainly didn't help these people because, like any political country that wants to save face, which China does, they want to save face. They didn't take accountability of starting the pandemic. They, have propaganda, and they told their people about how this started. And how did I learn that? Because I had students bring up things to me. So I don't want to get into all those details, but the thing is that how I was treated, how foreigners were treated during the pandemic was as if we brought it there. And, so people would keep their distance, and people would do certain behaviors that were sharing how fearful they were to be around us. Mind you, that every protocol and everything that we had to do was the same exact as theirs. And obviously we were there because they weren't allowing anyone come in or out of the country. Like they locked borders. So unfortunately, the ignorance of the local people due to, unfortunately, the evident and factual poor information they were getting, because they don't have free speech in that country. You can look it up. And then my dog on top of it all, because they were afraid of animals passing it on, and like the things they did to animals too, I can't even get into right now. So it was really difficult to feel at home there during the pandemic. It was very difficult to make connections because, again, we were isolated at home a lot of the times. So my connections I had to find, again, through talking on like Skype or, whatever apps that, the WeChat app there, I would use, like their apps. Because again, they don't use Google. They don't use Facebook. And yes, I had the VPN to connect with Facebook and people. But mind you, I'm just saying on a day-to-day basis, I just utilize the Chinese apps and I communicate through them. And I just was able to little by little, make some connections, and eventually I would make it back. We made it back to working in the university, and I met a couple of locals, really awesome ladies that I started becoming friendly with and started doing things with. But it took a really long time. If you get to know culture really well, I think if you step back and look at whatever country you're from, and you looked at how your government and how people took care or didn't take care of things during the pandemic, you can you would be a wallflower and just be an objective viewer. You can really learn about a culture. And I learned China really fast through this process and understanding the power of the CCP. And they are no joke. They don't, it's no joke. And the 3 years escalated. Like the first year, I have to be honest with you, was reasonable, but the second and third year was unbearable and unreasonable and illogical because they lost control of the virus. And again, they didn't want to show the world that they were not in control anymore. So it plays a big role on the lack of humanity that you experience as a human in that country. And I'm talking about as well as with their people. And how we were like petri dishes, more than humans. And that's how I really felt for a lot of that time, with breaks and stints between where I did do my best. I did my damnedest to travel during that time because I needed to, like, being cooped up in an apartment it's like being in prison. It was for me, and my spirit and my mind I just lost it. I couldn't bear it. Like I kept thinking about taking a jet ski across the ocean. Like anything to get across, anything to break free because, I'm all about my freedom. The best thing I have from my country is my passport and I use it. And I would say anyone who has the privilege of having a passport, I say use it. I think the pandemic taught us, life is short. And I think that travel is a big part of freedom and having access to the world is the best gift you could possibly have, the best education you can ever have. But anyway, eventually I made China my home the best that I could. Again, I made a few friends. Again, I'm not a big social person. I love my quiet time. I like, my personal time. But of course I need to go out, and I did also find a creative writing group. I eventually was doing that in the last city that I was in. I did make the best of China as I could, and I saw a lot of incredible history there. Like it really, like as far as, travel, if you like history in the visual way, which I do, China has plenty of it. So I was able to get to enjoy some of the top landmarks as well as, some of the UNESCO heritage sites. Those are outstanding. And that's the best way I could make China my home during that time, was to get out there and travel and, utilize their social media and, find groups with the foreigners and find out what's going on and, building some social connections and things that helped me navigate through it. It's absolutely essential for China. Like, you cannot do China completely alone. It's impossible. You are interdependent on them as well as you're interdependent on finding some foreigners that you can, lean on and cry on and talk to and laugh with or whatever to get you through it, because you need to find a way to laugh through it. So some places that you choose to go to might not turn out to be a place where you do feel completely wanted. And that was definitely my feeling with China, is that, yeah, they wanted me, but it's really more about face, I think, than anything else. But it certainly, was helpful, let's say, enlightening on, well, life, I got to make better choices, or, I got to figure out a better way to make money, or I need to stop leaning on, this way of doing things because it just wasn't working. And it hasn't been working for a while, to be honest. And it's like, okay, my next step is that I need to really start over. And you can do that at any age. So let me just point that out, people, like, especially from my culture and my country, like, they have this, like, 20s are this, 30s are that, 40s are this, 50s, whatever. And it's just, again, it's just nonsense. I have to be honest with you. It's just more cultural norms that help. It helps you navigate maybe with life, but it really certainly does not allow you to reconsider what your life can be. And I think that social media does help. There's plenty of, like, people like Jay Shetty, Nas Daily. There's, just those are names off the top of my head that, like, really help with looking outside the box of what's possible. And by all means, if your life is not working out for you, if you don't feel at home where you are, you can change that. You just need to just take that first step. And again, you don't have to move to China. You don't have to move even outside the country. But if you start taking some actions by even just talking to some new people, get out of your little group or, comfort zone in that way, and just open up the possibilities of a new friend, a new place to eat, going to a different side of your, like, trying a new hobby. I don't know. Just, you want your life to be a little different instead of complaining about, oh, my job is this. I don't have enough quality time with my family. I want to travel more. I don't have money. If you have these desires and these needs for your life to improve, then by all means start taking steps to do that so that you feel at home with yourself. And that's really what it comes down to. You need to feel home with yourself. The place does matter. I have to be honest with you. Like, when everyone says, like, you can create a home anywhere. Less technically you can. But look, I'm not Buddha, and I'm not Confucius, and I'm not, these gurus. But I can tell you, like, for someone like me, the environment really matters. The weather matters. The culture matters. The political situation matters. My freedom matters. There's things that matter to me, and I need it. I'm very temperamental, as I said, and temperature and quality of life and things on how the day-to-day works in a country, it matters. It really does matter. And I hear so many people talking about it and complaining about it that have the accessibility, the finances and things like that, but they've never been educated or take the time to really think about, what can I do to improve this so that I have a home that I enjoy? Well, the thing is, you have to be open to starting over that thought process. What does home mean to you, and what are the most important things? And be willing to say, well, maybe I do need to leave it behind. Maybe there's opportunities that I didn't know about, but I can look it up on the internet. I can talk to my friends, and maybe they know someone that can lead me in the right way. And I think that's really what it comes down to about home, is that whatever choices you do make about your life, again, to each their own. I'm not telling you to live my life. Like, let's just make that clear. I'm not here to condone my way of life and tell you this is what you should do with your life. I'm not saying that. But what I am trying to help you maybe understand why I live the life I do is that I'm just not content with the standard norms of life. In fact, as I get older, and I have learned so much through these experiences, being an experienced explorer has taught me that home is not something I just settle, like, okay, this is it. No, it's, okay, I'm going to try this out. I think this might be a good direction for me. And it's difficult. It's awkward, and I get frustrated like I do today. But if I don't try, how will I ever know? And I think that's what we lose. A lot of adults lose from our childhood is this freedom to explore, the freedom to carve out, create, imagine something else and trying it. And when we were little, we would, like, especially from my generation, we would fall down, like, off my bike. I would get scrapes on my knees and whatever. And I didn't cry home. I was like, okay, let me try again. Let me try again. Let me try again. And let me try again. And if you go to art school or something creative, you continue developing that. And that's what I continue to do. I made mistakes. I've made poor decisions. I tried new things and I didn't like them, or I didn't belong. But I'm still alive and I still have, I'm not in a situation where I cannot not start again. I can start again anytime. And I'm starting again. And we'll see how it goes. And who knows? Things might work out. But I'm just getting started here in the Philippines. And so we'll see. And I will definitely get more into my life and home in Philippines. But I think for now, it's really important to keep an open mind, an open heart to the ideas of home and being yourself. And I think that's really what it comes down to. The more that you are yourself, the more I think you'll feel at home. And that will carry you through to any of your choices of lifestyle that are for you. But by all means, people who live like me, I don't feel that I need to also explain to people, why do you do what you do? Like for me, when I look at normies living like that routine life, I actually, in my mind, I question, why are you choosing this? Is it because you want to, or because society and your family expectations and things like that? But I don't ask that, and I don't judge each person for that. So keep in mind, if you meet people like myself, maybe ask a question about, wow, how did you do this? How are you being a nomad? How did you make the choice to Philippines? Or what decisions, open a conversation without judgment to people like myself. Be more curious and try to learn from it instead of being fearful and just question why I would want to do something like that. Think about what questions you would want to be asked if you were me. I don't mind that you judge it. It's not about you, like I judge things. Of course, I have to make decisions, but meaning don't judge me negatively immediately for not doing the lifestyle that you do. And, I can think that I would never do that. You can think that. That's fine. And it's the same how I feel about your life. If you chose the family and living in one place and, doing certain things traditionally, I will never do that. And I never want to do that. And that's okay too. But if you're not happy with what you're doing, then consider other options for yourself and explore them.